This is the Bots and Bosses podcast, the only show where artificial intelligence, emerging tech, and digital disruption meet real world business. Presented by technologist, author, and no-nonsense navigator of the future, John Binks. It's Tech Talk without the jargon. Now, let's deep dive.
Welcome to the Bots and Bosses podcast, presented by John Binks.
Yes.
This is episode 41.
Right.
And originally aired on May 16th, 2026.
And we are really excited to dig into things today.
We really are. I mean, I want you to start by just, imagining a scenario. Picture yourself standing on this huge, seemingly endless beach, and you are totally blindfolded.
Okay, well, that already sounds pretty stressful.
Right. And then someone taps you on the shoulder, and they ask you to reach down and pick up one single microscopic grain of sand.
Which is, completely impossible.
Exactly. It sounds completely impossible. But what if you had a tool that could, instantly take the blindfold off, highlight that exact grain of sand in glowing neon, and just to filter out the rest of the beach?
Wow, that would change everything.
Yeah. And today we are going to talk about how NASA is doing exactly that to manage literally millions of feet of deep space film.
But we aren't just talking about space today, are we?
No, we're not.
Because we've been going through this massive stack of transcripts, notes, and, direct summaries from the ACT IAC Emerging Technology and Innovation Conference that just wrapped up outside of Washington, D.C.
Yeah, a lot of material to cover.
Right. We are doing a deep dive into panels covering everything from cybersecurity to quantum technology to government shared services. And, looking at all this material, the overriding theme is incredibly clear.
Yeah, the honeymoon phase is over.
Exactly. The honeymoon phase of emerging technology is officially over. We are finally watching the federal government move away from all that theoretical hype and, into the gritty reality of practical execution.
Which is such a massive relief because for the longest time, reading about government technology felt a bit like watching someone buy a state-of-the-art, multi-million-dollar sports car.
Oh, yeah.
And then just leave it parked in the driveway because nobody in the house actually knows how to drive a stick shift.
That is exactly what it felt like.
We've had all this theoretical capability, all these shiny press releases about what AI might do someday, but no real execution. But now, looking at the transcripts from these panels, they are finally putting the keys in the ignition.
They really are.
The debate at this conference was no longer, should we use AI? The driving question behind every single session was, how do we deploy this securely to improve actual mission outcomes right now?
And if we want to talk about putting the keys in the ignition, the most urgent place to start is the domain where execution is literally a matter of national security.
Right, cybersecurity.
Exactly. The consensus from the cybersecurity panels is that AI and cyber defense are now fundamentally interdependent. You can no longer have one without the other.
Wow, so they're permanently linked now.
They are, but let's look at why that actually is. Federal networks have thousands, sometimes millions, of endpoints, laptops, servers, remote sensors, and human analysts are drowning in what the industry calls alert fatigue.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, they are getting hit with thousands of security flags a day.
Right. And if a human being is just staring at a dashboard for 8 hours a day, eventually a critical alert just starts looking like background noise.
Exactly.
So the panels detailed how AI is being deployed right now to dramatically reduce those false positives. The AI essentially acts as a filter. It doesn't just look at an isolated alert. It correlates massive amounts of data in real time to create a unified view of the entire threat landscape.
It connects the dots.
Right. It connects the dots. It says, hey, this weird login in Washington, D.C. and this strange data transfer in Berlin aren't two separate glitches. They're part of the same coordinated attack. You can actually predict attack vectors before the breach even happens.
But, that capability definitely cuts both ways. The panelists issued a very stark warning that bad actors are moving just as fast, if not faster.
Yeah, which is terrifying.
It really is. Nation states and organized syndicates are already leveraging AI incredibly effectively to automate their attacks. They're using AI to map out federal targets, scan for vulnerabilities at lightning speed, and launch highly sophisticated automated phishing campaigns.
And those look completely indistinguishable from legitimate internal emails now.
Completely indistinguishable.
Okay, let's unpack this because this raises a massive red flag for me. If the defenders are using AI to block threats faster, and the attackers are using AI to launch threats faster, aren't we just automating an endless arms race?
Wow.
I mean, it feels a bit like hiring a super-powered bionic security guard to patrol your building. That sounds great on paper, but that bionic guard is completely useless if you forget basic blocking and tackling, like simply remembering to lock the front door at night.
That analogy perfectly captures the tension the cybersecurity experts were grappling with. AI cannot replace strong fundamentals. The technology absolutely gives defenders an edge in speed and correlation, but if you don't have sound network architecture, clear identity controls, and disciplined risk management, you are still incredibly vulnerable.
Because the foundation is weak.
Exactly. It doesn't matter how smart your AI is if your underlying system is fundamentally broken. This is forcing a massive evolution in the concept of zero trust.
Zero trust. Okay, that's the security framework we hear about constantly, the old never trust, always verify model.
Right.
Historically, that just meant you don't automatically trust a user just because they are on the corporate network.
Yeah.
You have to constantly verify their identity.
But the panels made it clear that zero trust is no longer just about network access. It has fundamentally become an AI conversation. You aren't just verifying a human user anymore.
Wait, really? So who are you verifying?
You have to apply never trust, always verify to the AI models themselves. Think about the mechanics of this. How do you trust an AI?
I guess you'd have to look at how it was made.
You have to verify the training data sets. If a bad actor manages to subtly poison the data and AI learns from teaching it that malicious traffic is actually quote unquote normal, the AI will just wave the attackers right through the front door.
Oh, wow. So you have to verify the data, you have to verify the prompts being fed into the system to prevent prompt injection attacks, and you have to govern the automated workflows the AI triggers.
Yes.
You have to constantly ask, are the outputs valid? Is the model drifting from its original parameters?
And crucially, the timing of that governance really matters. The panel issued a stark warning on this. They said if governance and risk scoring come after the AI is already integrated into the mission, we're just retrofitting controls.
You just slapping Band-Aids on it.
Right, we're bolting security on after the fact. And the government already learned this painful lesson during the cloud modernization era over the last decade.
Oh, I remember that. They rushed to the cloud, realized it wasn't secure by default, and spent years retrofitting defenses.
Exactly. If you repeat that mistake with AI, the consequences will be exponentially worse because AI operates at a scale and autonomy that the cloud never did.
Which naturally brings us to the friction point, because the most airtight, perfectly governed, mathematically flawless security protocols in the world will absolutely fail if the human workforce actively works around them.
Human nature always finds a way.
Always. You can build the perfect vault, but if it takes 20 minutes to open the door, people will just start propping it open with a brick. And this human element came up heavily in the federal AI transformation panel.
It did. A speaker from the Department of Health and Human Services framed this perfectly. The biggest hurdles to AI adoption right now are not the code, the algorithms, or the compute power.
Let me guess, it's the people.
It's the people.
Mhm.
The biggest hurdles are culture and change management. Federal staff absolutely need training, but the panel stressed that we cannot just mandate a single, boring PowerPoint presentation once a year and call it AI literacy.
Right. Because reading a slide deck about AI ethics doesn't actually teach someone how to use a large language model to analyze a massive spreadsheet.
No, it really doesn't. The panels noted that the workforce needs multiple varied formats of training. They need hands-on sandboxes.
Like safe spaces to play around.
Exactly. They need safe spaces for experimentation where they can break things without, taking down a federal database. And perhaps most importantly, the fundamental metrics for how we measure the success of these tools have to change.
Well, historically, government tech success is measured by two very rigid yardsticks. Did it come in under budget, and does it check all the compliance boxes?
Right, but the argument made at the conference is that cost and compliance are no longer sufficient. We have to start measuring operational resilience and societal impact.
So, does this AI tool actually make the agency more robust against disruptions?
Yes.
Yeah.
And is it delivering a measurable, tangible benefit to the public? If you don't have clear mission use cases that make the employee's job easier and the public's life better, you lose the workforce's trust.
And when you lose the workforce's trust, or when the official heavily governed tools are too slow and clunky to actually use, you get the phenomenon highlighted in the government shared services panel. Shadow IT.
Shadow IT. Yeah.
This is when employees just quietly start using unauthorized, off-the-shelf software to get their jobs done.
And the panels framed shadow IT in a really profound way, because it's easy for leadership to look at shadow IT as just a compliance violation or a bunch of rogue employees breaking the rules.
That's more than that.
It's a glaring signal of unmet needs.
Yeah.
It is a user experience problem.
Right.
If the official secure shared services takes 6 months to provision or they crash constantly, users will bypass them.
Yeah, they will put sensitive government data into a public AI chatbot, because the public chatbot actually answers their question in 3 seconds.
Exactly.
But here is where I see a massive contradiction in what these agencies are trying to do. On one hand, agencies are begging for agility and speed. They need to move fast to serve the public and stay ahead of adversaries.
Right.
But on the other hand, they require strict, uncompromising governance and transparency to protect national data. Aren't those two things fundamentally at odds?
They definitely seem like it.
How do you move fast without breaking things, when breaking things means compromising federal security?
But before we answer that, I want to say, if you are enjoying our podcast, please click like and follow our show.
Yes, definitely do that.
And remember to tell your friends about our show. So how do we solve that contradiction?
Well, it's the central tension of modern government technology.
Yeah.
But the Shared Services panel offered a very practical solution to that contradiction. Proper shared services are the bridge between agility and governance.
How so?
Think about the mechanics of how this works. If an agency builds an internal innovation hub, a secure, walled-off environment where employees can test proof-of-concept AI tools, they satisfy that desperate need for speed.
So you are basically making the right way the easy way. Exactly. If those shared systems are built around real agency demand, if the IT department actually listens to what the workforce is complaining about and builds solutions for those specific pain points, then employees won't feel the need to go rogue.
That makes total sense.
When shared services are trusted, fast, and effective, they prevent shadow AI from becoming the next generation of shadow IT. You don't govern emerging tech by just saying no. You govern it by providing a better, faster, safer alternative to the unauthorized tools.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You have to win the workforce over, not just mandate them into submission. Now, once you have that governance architecture in place, and once the culture is prepped and the workforce is genuinely trained, you can start tackling the really mind-bending stuff.
This is the fun part.
Yeah, this deep dive wouldn't be complete without looking at what happens when these mature, governed systems hit the absolute frontiers of data. I'm talking about quantum computing and deep space exploration.
The Schrodinger's Roadmap panel was a massive eye-opener on this front. It proved that quantum technology has fundamentally moved out of the realm of theoretical physics on a university chalkboard.
It's actually real now.
It is here, and it is operational. Representatives from D-Wave Quantum were there, explaining how their quantum systems are actively accessible right now via their cloud service, which is called LEAP.
Which is wild to think about from an infrastructure perspective. You don't need a massive, super-cooled, multi-million-dollar laboratory in your own agency's basement to leverage quantum mechanics. You just access the quantum computer through the cloud, the same way you access your email.
It's incredible. But let's talk about how this is different from normal computing, because the real-world use cases they discussed are staggering.
Yeah, so classical computing is linear, right? It's like trying to find your way out of a maze by walking down one path, hitting a dead end, walking all the way back, and trying the next path. Quantum computing, leveraging superposition, explores all the paths simultaneously.
And because it can explore all those variables simultaneously, it is incredibly adept at solving complex optimization problems.
Like what kind of problems?
Well, the panelists detailed how quantum is actively being used to optimize massive telecommunications networks, routing data in the most efficient way possible. It's being used to improve complex logistics and supply chains, enhance GPS and time transfer protocols.
Wow.
And it even has direct applications in missile defense trajectories.
But leveraging that kind of multidimensional computing power raised a critical challenge at the conference, didn't it? The workforce.
Right.
I mean, you thought finding AI talent was hard. Try finding quantum engineers.
Oh, absolutely. You can't just take a 2-week coding boot camp in JavaScript and suddenly understand how to program a system operating at near absolute zero.
Right.
Which is why the panel highlighted aggressive grassroots workforce initiatives that have to start right now. They pointed to Montana State University, which is pushing K-12 programs to get kids thinking in quantum concepts early.
Getting them started young, that makes sense.
Exactly. And there are industry-posted, specialized 2-week cryogenic technician boot camps spinning up. These aren't for physicists. They are just to train the technicians on how to physically maintain the complex cooling systems these quantum computers require to function.
And underlying all of this incredible innovation is a very loud ticking clock, because the panel spent a lot of time on the urgent threat of post-quantum encryption.
Yeah, this is where the sheer power of quantum computing becomes a massive liability for national security. Classical encryption, the security protecting your bank account, your emails, and classified federal communications, relies on incredibly complex math problems like factoring massive prime numbers.
Right, and a classical supercomputer would take thousands of years to crack those algorithms.
But a powerful enough quantum computer could solve those math problems in moments. The encryption that secures the modern world would essentially be useless.
That is terrifying. That is why the federal government is racing to develop and deploy post-quantum cryptographic standards right now. They have to upgrade the locks on the doors before the adversary builds a quantum key that opens literally everything.
It's a daunting reality, but it brings us to a perfect example of how to handle massive, almost incomprehensible scale. Because when we talk about managing overwhelming amounts of data and mitigating risk, nobody does it quite like NASA.
Yeah, NASA is on another level. Dr. Troy LeBlanc, the Chief Information Officer at Johnson Space Center, gave a presentation that perfectly crystallized everything we've talked about today.
The sheer volume of data NASA is managing is staggering.
To give you some context on that, Dr. LeBlanc noted that NASA is currently managing over 12 million feet of physical film and 10.3 million still photos. And that is just from the International Space Station alone.
Which is mind-blowing.
It really is.
Yeah.
And that brings me back to the analogy we started with. Trying to manually sort through 12 million feet of film to find a specific anomaly or track the degradation of a specific part on a spacecraft over a decade. Well, it is literally like trying to find a single specific grain of sand on a sprawling beach while blindfolded.
And human analysts simply cannot process that volume of historical and real-time telemetry. So Dr. LeBlanc detailed how NASA is deploying highly specialized AI agents to handle this.
And they aren't just using generic chatbots, right?
Not at all. They have an AI agent known as the Holy Grail. This tool is specifically designed for risk assessment. It ingests decades of historical part failures, maintenance logs, and real-time sensor data to spot anomalies and predict risks that a human would never catch.
That's amazing. And they pair that with another platform called Luna. Luna acts as a collaborative data processing environment. It breaks down the silos between different engineering and scientific disciplines, acting as a translation layer so that all this massive disparate data can actually be understood and utilized across the entire agency.
But here is the most crucial part of NASA's presentation, and it ties directly back to our discussion on zero trust and governance. It's the concept of provenance.
Provenance.
Yes. Provenance is the ability to definitively prove the origin and history of a piece of data. In an era of deepfakes, AI-generated imagery, and rampant misinformation, NASA is using AI and cryptographic validation to prove the absolute authenticity of their own space imagery.
So they are essentially watermarking the data at the point of capture on the space station. So when an image of a hurricane or a deep space anomaly comes down to Earth, we know with mathematical certainty that it hasn't been altered by a generative AI model somewhere along the way.
Exactly. Because for an agency like NASA, their ultimate currency isn't just scientific discovery, it is public trust. If the public cannot trust the data, the mission fails.
Right.
By starting with that core mission problem, we need to maintain public trust in our data in an era of deepfakes, they were able to design an AI solution that actually works. They didn't just buy a shiny AI product and go looking for a problem to solve.
So what does this all mean for you listening to this deep dive? Whether you work in federal technology, whether you are running a private enterprise, or you're just someone trying to manage your own data and understand the tools shifting the world around you, the overarching theme from the ACT IAC conference is incredibly relevant.
We are definitely moving out of the honeymoon phase.
Right. The flashy headlines about what AI or quantum computing might do in 5 years are being replaced by the hard, unglamorous, necessary work of making them function securely today.
The ultimate lesson distilled from all these panels, from the cybersecurity experts fighting alert fatigue, to the shared services teams battling shadow IT, to NASA managing millions of feet of film, is that technology alone solves absolutely nothing.
No, it doesn't.
You can have the most advanced quantum processor in the world, but trust, rigorous execution, and human accountability are what will actually determine our future. You have to lock the front door. You have to train your people. You have to verify your data.
And if you don't build systems that actually help your workforce do their jobs, they will just bypass you anyway. Which leaves me with a final thought for you to mull over.
What's that?
Well, we talked a lot today about the user experience problem of shadow IT employees quietly using unauthorized AI tools because the official systems are too slow or too rigid.
Right.
But as quantum computing accelerates at breakneck speed, and as platforms like D-Wave's Leap make quantum access as easy as logging into a cloud service, how long until we see shadow quantum emerging in the workplace?
Oh, wow. That's a scary thought.
If an analyst gets frustrated with a slow classical database, what happens when they decide to run federal data through an unauthorized quantum cloud just to get the job done faster? How do we govern a technology that operates at a scale and speed that outpaces our human ability to even fully comprehend it?
That is the big question.
It really is. Today's show was human-inspired and powered with AI assistance.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Be sure to visit us, www.botsandbosses.com.
See you next time.
Remember, the bots are getting smarter, but you're still the boss.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Bots and Bosses podcast. Remember, the bots are getting smarter, but you're still the boss. For now, see you next time.